everyone, today we are going to talk about the role of a jungler. If you have been playing that role for a while already, you're probably used to being criticized by your teammates all the time by now. Junglers always were and will definitely always be the scapegoat of any team. That is the guy who'll take all the blame for all the mistakes and bad luck the team has endured. Even if your KDA is soaring and you're all over those map objectives, you might still get some negative comments addressed your way. So why does that happen? Why do junglers have to take all of that? Well, a jungler is much like the electricity that runs through your house. Everyone knows what it is. It makes every machine, like your kitchen hardware or your computer, function, which is why you can play League of Legends in the first place. But not many people understand how much effort goes into making that happen. Power lines, some of which are underground, substations and power boxes, the power plants, and thousands upon thousands of people keeping it all maintained. Any power cut will require a lot of work being done to restore the flow. But the end users rarely think about how it all works. They just see that their devices don't work all of a sudden and get all upset. Well, the same goes for the junglers. At first glance it looks pretty obvious. Clear the jungle, then come to the lane and gank. But you know it's not nearly that simple. Most of the players only have a basic understanding of how jungle works. That is, they know what a jungler has to do, how they gank, and where they have to put the wards down. But they don't know the little details. In reality, you can't even tell what exactly a jungler has to do. Not that clearly. We think that the jungle is, for the most part, a contest of two minds. You need to read the match. Read your opponents, both in the jungle and out on the lanes. And by reading them, you can be one step ahead of them at all times. You then have to analyze that information and make a decision about where you are needed the most. You have to also take your opponent's movements into account, and also the basic status of the lanes themselves. Analyzing the current situation and making that final decision has many different parts to it. Where did the enemy jungler start? Did they get any help from their allies? How fast is their clearing speed? How strong are they? Are they stronger than you? If they are, for how long? If they are not, what can make them stronger? You also need to understand the lane matchups. Some lanes will have a priority on your side, and some will have a priority on the opposite side. Some of your allies will require your help to succeed, and some will not. Does your opponent even understand all of that? Well, as the game proceeds, you get a second layer of information right on top of the one we've just covered. Which dragon has just spawned? What are the jungle buff and scuttle crab's respawn timers? What about the summoner spells and champion power spikes? Well, all of those are the real reasons why no one has the right to tell you what you have to do in any given match. No one can tell you precisely what to do to achieve a 100% chance of victory. Every match is absolutely unique, and your mindset has to be as unique to adapt to them. But still, we can give you some directions which you can use to make that adaptation process a lot smoother in your head, which will, in its turn, increase your chances of victory. The entire gameplay for a jungler can be described with two basic words: pressure and retaliation. We'll start off with the pressure. Obviously enough, a jungler has to keep all of the enemy lanes in a state of constant stress. They have to think twice before going out to roam or starting to play aggressively. They have to expect being ganked at all times. And the enemy jungler has to be pressured as well. Instead of scheming their own ganks, they have to be thinking about you. About where you are going to strike next, or the map objective you are going to capture, or even the jungle camps you are going to steal from them. Retaliation, on the other hand, is your response to the enemy jungler's actions. You need to be ready to punish them for any aggressive action they attempt. If they go to gank bot lane, you should steal their topside jungle camps. If they go for a dragon, you have to go for the Rift Herald. If they use Smite to secure the Scuttle Crab, you have to go ahead and steal their Grump from under their nose. Each of their actions has to be met with an equal reaction. Pressure and retaliation can be separated into several basic categories: ganking and counter-ganking, map objective control, and also the invades and counter jungling. So let's begin with the most obvious one, that is the ganks. This is where your knowledge about lane matchups steps in, as well as your full attention to your minimap. Watch where the lane is positioned at the moment and how far away your enemies are from their towers. See if they move somewhere where you have no vision, and how long they have been there. That information might give their wording away. when you know where the enemy wards are at, you can plan your ganking route around them and get a bigger chance of success. Analyze the matchups. If you have early lane bullies on your team, like Renekton for example, you might want to come to them once or twice to boost their performance and secure the lane domination. But you have to understand that the enemy jungler might be aware of that as well. If you have some weak laning phase champions on your team, like Vladimir or Gangplank, they might need your help with lane control or counter ganks to scale off into the mid and late game better. But don't just sit around on their lane all day. Do not disturb them when they're doing well and are farming safely. You should only come when they need your help with lane positioning. Also, we should mention counter ganking. It's an extremely effective way of applying pressure to your opponents. Analyze the enemy jungler's clearing route and try to guess their understanding of the current matchups. If you are able to guess successfully, your kills during the counter ganks will be twice as time effective as your usual ganks. After all, by killing them, you are preventing them from killing their target, which means that you have basically scored 2 kills of advantage instead of just 1. The gold advantage could have gone -300, but it turned out +300, which means that you have earned 600 coins. But not all lanes could be ganked, nor some of them should be ganked. Just watch them before you act. If your ally is preparing a slow push and the enemy tower is about to be swarmed by a huge wave of creeps, you might want to come in and help your ally to drive the opponent away from their own tower. Even if you don't score a kill, you'll force them to lose 2 or 3 full waves of creeps, which is similar to a kill, gold and experience-wise. And if you destroy the tower too, you'll double the profit of this seemingly harmless gank. Okay, let's get to the map objectives now. During the laning phase, you have several map objectives to worry about. Those are the dragons, Rift Herald and the outer towers. Not every dragon is worth contesting. On our website you can find a video regarding the team compositions in which we cover the priorities in dragon hunting. Dragons take a lot of time and resources to capture, especially when you want to do it safely. Furthermore, you would most likely need a lane priority on the nearby lanes, just so the opponents wouldn't be able to interrupt you. The same thing goes for the Rift Herald. Not every team setup should prioritize him over other objectives, but the towers, especially the outer towers, are the most valuable asset you can go for. Not only does it give you both local and global gold upon destruction, it also provides you with a huge tactical advantage, as you can enter the enemy jungle a lot easier. Any gank and any kill should be transformed into a captured map objective. Alright, now it's time to talk about the counter jungling. This is pretty much the simplest and easiest to understand way to apply pressure on your opponent during the early game. The basics of this forbidden art lay in understanding your matchup and foreseeing the enemy jungle clearing route. If you're playing Camille with Nocturne playing against you, you can manage to take your red buff, then rotate and take the opponent's blue buff before setting up an ambush against them. Nocturne will spend a lot of time tackling his red buff, then his raptors and then the wolves, before he'll finally reach your ambush. If you do everything correctly, not only will you apply some pressure on the enemy jungler, but you'll also make the enemy lanes nervous. They will have to watch their backs, or will have to leave everything and come help their jungler out. Any sort of pressure you're applying to the enemy jungler, be it a kill or just a forced trip to their base, will affect every lane on the map. Your allies will feel a bit safer, while the opponents will be stressed and thus careful. This is extremely effective in cases where your team setup consists of the strong early game champions. The lack of pressure from the enemy jungler will help them snowball out of control a lot easier. By the end of the laning phase, junglers are slowly pushed into the background. The players switch from individual actions to team actions, and the jungler simply becomes either a second tank, second support, or a second carry for their team. Your goal as a jungler gets limited to providing more vision around the map objectives and securing them using your smite. Don't forget that all of the above heavily relies on your ability to pick correct champions to suit your team composition. Riot Games are aiming to make the pool of the jungle champions as diverse as they possibly can. So this is why you can see such champions as Kha'Zix and Evelynn being the assassins, or Gragas and Trundle being the fighters, or Sejuani and Zac being the tanks, or even Kindred and Graves being the marksmen. You indeed do have champions to choose from, and your goal is to expand your own pool of playable champions as much as you can, to be adaptable and versatile in any given situation. Summing up, we'd like to remind you that your KDA means very little in terms of your overall effectiveness and the quality of your performance. There is no such thing as a bad score when it comes to playing a jungler. Jungling is not all about ganking after all. You have to apply pressure, help with lane control, capture the map objectives, destroy the towers and do counter ganks. That's what jungling is all about. So this is it for now guys, but before we finish, here is a little piece of advice. Play as much as you can. Watch the enemy junglers, remember their clearing routes. All of that contributes to your game knowledge and helps you understand the jungle matchups better. And the more you know, the more your game experience will grow, and thus you'll win more and more matches that you play. So, on this note, thank you so much for watching guys, and as always good luck in your solo queue.